Thank you so much for joining us today for our next episode of AWS Connections IoT. My name is Michael Palermo. I'm with the Developer Relations team at Here Technologies, and with me today is Vidhan. Go ahead, Vidhan, and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Michael. Hey, everyone. I'm Vidhan, and I'm developer evangelist at Here Technologies, and I'm based out of India.
Yeah, so we always have this tremendous hour gap. I think it's like the same time minus a half an hour, but thank you for sharing your evening with us, those who are on this side of the world. I'm curious, Vidhan, I believe the last time that we chatted, I don't recall this backdrop here that you have. So explain to me what changed. I see more red.
Yeah, so it has changed, right? So I was comfortable with it, but my mother, she asked me to change it because it was about time to change this curtain. So it's a curtain actually. So you'll see several curtains during our live stream, hopefully one or two more, depending on how frequently my mother asked me to change. Yeah.
That's great. Well, listen, first of all, maybe as a recap, why don't you kind of explain what happened in episode 1 of this IoT series?
Sure. If you can share your screen, right? You
Sure.
have an architecture there.
Yeah, let me get there. I'll tell you when it's up. And we're there. I can see things above my head. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So what we have here, or what we discussed in the first episode, was we talked about IoT and what is IoT ecosystem, and we talked about how to create an IoT device. So we created an IoT device in a way that we had a Node MCU, which I'm going to work today also, and then we simply set up our Node MCU and we started running it. That is what we did. And if you talk about what we are going to do today, then today is going to be a lot more interesting because today is what we are going to do is we are going to concentrate on this red box. And as you can see, Michael, we have an IoT endpoint which is going to communicate with IoT gateway. So today we are going to build an IoT gateway from a Raspberry Pi, and I have a Raspberry Pi line right next to the camera or behind the camera, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. All
Okay,
right. So go ahead. Get rolling with what we're going to be doing.
Okay, so today's episode is mostly about IoT gateway. Now, first of all, what is IoT gateway? Now, name suggests that it's IoT, so of course it's going to be Internet of Things, and it's going to be a gateway. And gateway, as we had discussed previously, is what it does. It is basically a protocol converter. When I say a protocol converter, in the previous architecture, when you see that your IoT endpoint is sending data to your IoT gateway, that data could be in terms of Bluetooth, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be LPWAN, it could be anything, any kind of data. But the data, when it goes from IoT gateway to the cloud, it is supposed to be in either your HTTP protocol or any internet-based protocol, basically. So what gateway is doing is changing Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or LPWAN or NB-IoT, any of this protocol data into an IP-enabled data. So that is one of the major tasks of a gateway, converting the protocol. One. Second thing that you can do on a gateway is that you can store the data. That is what I'm going to show you. And apart from that, once you have stored the data, you can perform data analytics and you can even perform machine learning tasks. Why and how? Because gateways are normally very powerful computer. It could be as small as your Raspberry Pi, which we are going to use today, which is Raspberry Pi 4. And it has around, I think, 3 GB of RAM, 3 or 4 GB of RAM. I'll have to check. And apart from that, it has a 16 GB of storage, and it has a very powerful processor. So we're going to use that. Now, when you talk about gateways, it could be as small as your Raspberry Pi, or it could be as big as your own computer, your own servers. You can use your own laptop or desktop. You can simply create a server on it. You'll have to simply run a server program. That server could be in HTTP or MQTT. So we're going to work with HTTP server today, right? and we are going to send data from IoT endpoint. That data is going to be location data and temperature to our IoT gateway. And then on the IoT gateway, if we have time today, we are going to publish or create a map to show under certain condition. If those conditions are matched in our coding and our logic on the gateway, we are going to publish or show a map. Okay, so that is the plan for today.
Okay. Very good. Well, you know what I really like about this is that you're helping to realize that it doesn't have to be like just think of device and then all the processing must happen in the cloud somewhere. What you're saying is that there can be this gateway where there can be some tremendous advantage given right there at the gateway.
Yeah, so the scenario is very specific. You can say that, or very unique when we talk about gateways. Let's say that you have a smart factory and you have a lot of machines where you have IoT devices attached to it, right? And you want to send that data to the cloud, but you won't want to send complete data to the cloud, the raw data. Then what you're going to do, you're going to collect all the data from all the devices on a server, which is on the premises, on the factory premises only. And then you're going to store that data there, and you're going to filter that data. And then instead of sending simple, plain, raw data, you're going to convert that data into information. And then you're going to send the information to the cloud. And that is how Gateway works very well. It protects your data. It performs a kind of a task of security also, because now your end devices or your machines connected with IoT devices are not directly exposed to the outside world. So one, it is also protecting your IoT devices.
Nice.
Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's create a gateway first. So I have a, what do you call, Raspberry Pi here, right? What you're seeing on your screen is basically Raspberry Pi. And this Raspberry Pi has a Raspbian OS installed. You can easily search for Raspbian OS and you'll get a lot of hits for it. And you can simply download this. So it's going to be almost of 2 GB or 3 GB, depending on what version you're downloading. Okay. And apart from that, you'll have to do a few things. Now you can see that I'm able to access my Raspberry Pi on my laptop, although my Raspberry Pi is lying a bit far from me, right? So what we have done is we have basically, first of all, got our Raspbian OS on Raspberry Pi, that's on the SD card. And apart from that, we have enabled few things, which you can see in the menu under preferences under Raspberry Pi configuration. Okay, and you can see the interfaces. So I have enabled SSH, which is your secure socket shell protocol. So this protocol we basically use for remotely accessing any machine in the network. And another protocol through which we are actually seeing this desktop in a graphical view is VNC protocol. Okay, so we are basically using this VNC viewer. Okay,
Interesting.
And so this simply accessing it. So this is your Raspberry Pi.
Hey,
Okay.
so just a quick question for you on that. And if you don't know, that's fine. But I'm just curious if I didn't see it on the screen when you were at the protocols, but if you did happen to have MQTT as something you were wanting to communicate, would one of those have sufficed as to use as a protocol for communication?
Okay, so as I have said that we can use basically, there are a lot of protocols that we can choose from. So MQTT is also we can work with. The only thing that we'll have to do is we'll have to create a server, which will be a MQTT server, which we call broker here.
Okay,
But
that's good. Thanks.
So you have options when you talk about MQTT broker. You can create a PAHO broker, or the easiest one is Mosquito broker. Okay, you can do that. But we are going to work with HTTP. That is the simplest one and the shortest one to show, right? And I will show a lot of things working with HTTP protocol. So let's start with that. Okay, so first thing that you would want to do is you want to open this structure, this file structure. Now, there's a very interesting thing on Raspberry Pi when you work on this. It has a lot of support, which is already there, and the support that we are looking for is Python support. So it has Python installed. So you talk about any Linux-based operating system, you talk about any Mac OS, every OS which is Linux or Unix-based, it comes with Python installed, right? So Python is there. you can simply open your terminal or command prompt, and you can simply type Python and find Python there. You can check it here also. I didn't install anything here. So you have Python. Yes, you have. Let me increase the size. Zoom in. Zoom in. Is it visible now?
Yes.
So next thing that you would want to do is you would want to start a server, an HTTP server, and for that, whenever you want to create an HTTP server, right? If you want to create a server on your own machine, what you do is you install XAMPP, XAMPP, or you install WAMP, which is kind of a server, which is basically your LAMP stack, LAMP, right? L stands for your operating system, A stands for your Apache server, M stands for your MySQL database, and P stands for your PHP language. So Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, that makes your LAMP stack. Similarly, we also have an inbuilt stack buildup here for HTTP, and that is what we're going to use. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to go to the users here, USR, and inside the user you have to go to the lib. Inside the lib, you have to search for Python 2.7, if I'm correct. Yeah. Inside here, you have to search for HTTP CGI or CGI HTTP server. Now, the server that we are going to use is what we call CGI HTTP server. Now, CGI is not your computer graphic interface. CGI here is Common Gateway Interface. Let me search that, CGI. So this is what you need, CGI HTTP server. Now, this is a server. When we run this, it's going to make our computer or Raspberry Pi a server. So the point, Michael, here is that you can make any computer a server. All you need to do is run a simple program. So simply copy this and paste it where you want to use it. So I'm going to use this here. I have already pasted this here. So this is your CGI HTTP server. Next thing that you would want to do is you would want to run this. The process is simple. Simply type command Python -m CGI HTTP server, and it's going to start a server on 000.00 port 8000. I think I have my Node MCU sending data, so that is what you're seeing here. So I'm going to disconnect my Node MCU for now. Okay, so this is your server, which is serving at port number 8000. And to know this, okay, to try it out, we need to know the IP address of this, which you can find with the help of a command called ipconfig.
Hey, we have a question.
Yeah.
I believe I'm reading the alias correctly. Drunk Owl is saying Python 2 is default for Raspbian. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Python 2 is default.
Okay.
So you can simply check. You can run your code, and it will run in Python 2, Python 2.7 to be precise. I think it's Python 2.7.10. We'll have to check Python version. Okay. I should have written -version. That should work. Scroll up. Okay, let me exit this. Python -version. Or Python -v. Nope, it's not showing like that. Simply type Python, and it's 2.7.16 by default.
Okay, and you got a thank you from Drunk Owl for answering that.
You're welcome. So you have the HTTP server running. Next thing that you would want to know is the IP address of this. That's going to be config. And the IP address that we have is 192.168.29.175. Now, while trying this out, make sure that your Raspberry Pi, your laptop are in same network, right? Because we are not running it on a universal server. It's not a public one, right? We are locally running it, okay? So copy this and check it out if it's working. So this is on my PC, which is Windows PC. And I'm going to simply type this port, and let's see if we are able to see what is there on Raspberry Pi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're able to see it, right?
Yes.
That means that our server is up and running, and it is also sending us back a response 200. That is okay. So everything
And
is
just to be
working
clear,
fine.
we're not dealing with a Raspberry Pi simulator. There is a real device that this server has been deployed to.
Yeah, it's a real device.
Okay.
I wish I could have shown you the
Oh, that's
device,
okay.
but my setup didn't allow me to keep it around.
No, we believe you. We trust you.
Thank you. Okay, so next thing that you want to do is if you want to run something, okay, the point is that you should be able to send data to the server, right? The server is going to act as a gateway, right? So what do you need to do here? You need to have a script running, which we can execute from our endpoint, right? It
Hmm.
could be your IoT device, it's going to be our PC. So for that, always remember everyone that you need to have a CGI-bin folder created. Okay, now CGI is Common Gateway Interface, and how does it work? You send a request to it, it's going to send you a response, and response is going to be any, you can say that HTML page you can get file structure, right? Okay, so it works like that only. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it as data.py. So this is a file which we are going to work with, and I'm going to work with Python, okay, because we have created a Python server. Remember, guys. Let me check if I can zoom in. Okay, we'll check it later. So first thing that you would want to do is you would want to introduce a shebang line, USR. The shebang line. Okay, I don't remember the code line structure, so I've just jotted it down somewhere. Let me actually. What does this line do is it tells you or your operating system that the environment that we are working with is what we call Python environment. And we're going to import CGI, and we are simply going to call this CGI.field storage. So basically, we are going to create an object called form, right? And it's going to access whatever is inside or coming from this CGI, okay? And we are going to assign it to a variable. Let's call it val, and this variable is going to work like form dot, I think, get value. And here, since we are working with HTTP, right? It's an HTTP server. It's going to take out key value pair, right? Okay, so I'm going to give the key name that is going to be say name, and that's it. So
Sure.
now, once you get the data, what you want to do is you would want to store a data in a file, right? File. When I say that, let's store the data into, let's call it IoT data, into a text file. You can store it in CSV. You can store it in a text file. You can store it in any way you want. For now, we are going to store it in a text file, and I'm going to append the data, and then I'm going to start writing whatever we are going to get into it, right? And we got the value. Let's write. And what do you want to write? Let's say that you want to write name, okay, and you want to convert the value that you're getting into it. Well, okay, and apart from that, you would want to change the line. Right? So these are the simple lines of code that you can have. And after that, you would want to flush the buffer if anything is there. And after that, you would want to close your writing options. So this is a very simple code that you can see on your screen. Okay, let me see if I can copy it and paste it here. Yeah, you can see the code. This is the
Yeah.
code that we have
Hmm.
written till now.
Sure.
Okay, now let's try it out. We have our server running. That means that we should be able to access these files remotely. But you'll have to remember, you'll have to give the complete path to these files. Okay, let's try it out. So you have this. After that, the path is CGI-bin. And inside that, you have data.py file, and we have to provide the value name. Now, this key pair value we have to provide. Let's provide Rehan. Let's check. Okay, I did something wrong. The thing that I did wrong is everything is going to come after this. I don't know what it opened. Okay, guys, everything is going to come after this. Okay, uh, to be gi-bin, then your data. See, I tried before, so let's check your name only. So it worked. Let's check on the server if our server is responding or taking the values, and you should get, okay, we are getting an error, run underscore CGI. Let's check. I'm going to restart the server, and we'll have to check if everything is running fine or not. So we are getting data.txt. Okay, this is the older data, so I'm going to delete this.
Is
Okay.
it possible? Is there any syntax errors in your code? Is the code case sensitive? Like, would get value need a capital V?
No, only field storage has to be in uppercase, and apart from that, everything is going to be in lowercase. So we have opened f equals to open, f dot write name. You have converting the value into string. Yeah, I can change this. Flush. Okay, let's try again.
Sure.
Let's check on the server. Okay, let me check. I have, for such scenario, I have created one code, which is a test code. I'm going to open this, and I'm going to steal a few things from here.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to steal the complete code. That would be better. Okay, so I'm going to comment all these things, and I'm going to leave only few values that we can use. And we are going to have IoT here, and then we are going to simply write the data. Let's have temperature data only, right? Because that is what we are going to send. I have connected a temperature sensor to this. Okay, so let me copy and paste it in the here. Okay, so this is the code. We simply have importing CGI, and then we are accessing the storage. We are getting the values. Now, instead of key is going to be temp, and the value is what we are going to fetch, right? This value. Okay. Now let's change this. Now instead of calling name, what we're going to call, we are going to call TMP. TMP. Let's call it 88. Let's check again. Oh, okay. There's one very silly mistake that I did. Now, whenever you are trying to access these codes, right, the file have to be,
Close.
the permissions have to be correct one, right? Because
Ah.
you want to access this. So right now, nobody can execute this. We're going to keep it
So
open.
when it says nobody can execute it, it really means it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Linux, actually. Let's try it again. So we have this, unable to connect. Let's check it again. We'll start the server again if it does not work.
Sure.
Okay, let's start the server again and run this again. Now everything should work fine. Keeping our fingers crossed. Okay, you got the data. You got, this is the link that you got, CGI pin, and this is the data that you got. And
Yeah.
according to our code, this data should be stored in IoT.txt as a value. So basically what we are doing here, we are storing the values. And now what we're going to do is we are not going to do it by ourselves, right? I'm not going to call link again and again. We are going to use an IoT device to do this task. Instead of me writing it, me searching on the browser, let IoT device do it. Okay.
Right.
So
But I just have
to
to
show,
I have to tell you right off the bat though, highly
Mhm.
exciting to see some text in a text file. That was pretty exciting. So, continue.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to close few files here. I'm going to close this file. We don't need this to keep everything clean. Now, we're going to work with IoT device. So you might want to move to the only camera window, right, where I can show the device or the setup that we have, which we are going to use. Okay. Can you see on
Nice.
your?
I see it. So what are we
Okay.
looking at again? What is this?
So this is Node MCU, which is connected
In
to
fact,
the
let
same.
me. I'm gonna just change our view real quick to something a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. Okay, go ahead
Okay.
and explain.
So this is Node MCU, which is connected to the laptop through which we are going to code this, and this is connected to a hotspot, and the same hotspot, and they are sharing the hotspot. This Node MCU and Raspberry Pi and my laptop is sharing the hotspot. They have to be in the same network, and through these wires, it is connected to a temperature sensor called LM35. And I wanted to generate the latitude longitude data, right? But the issue that happened is these are not working. So that is something that we'll have to cope up with, right? So what I did is, instead of connecting data or getting the latitude longitude data from hardware, I'm simply generating it randomly. So this is the code for it.
Okay, let me switch back to that code view.
Sure.
All right, we're back and surrounded by code again.
Yeah. So this is Arduino. So guys, we are going to shift from C programming to Python programming, and that is what we're going to do. So this is your Arduino programming, which is a hybrid version of C, C++. And this is the address of our Raspberry Pi. Let me make sure that it's same address. Yeah. And my bad. This is the string. Now I'm going to change this. There's going to be data.py. And after this, we are going to send some values. And instead of me sending the values to browser, we are going to let our Node MCU do that. So we are getting connected to my hotspot. And then we have few variables for temperature and latitude, longitude. And we are simply saying that, okay, we are going to get connected to our hotspot, and we are going to print the IP address here. And then the major magic is happening in the loop, right? Now, what loop is doing, few lines of these codes is basically converting or understanding the data, the temperature data, right? Because these sensors works on voltages, right? So we have to convert voltages into temperature and vice versa. So this calculation is here. So you're getting the temperature here, MC. And after that, you have latitude, longitude, where we are generating the random values. So since I couldn't connect the GPS sensor, I had to randomly generate it. And we are printing it for us. And later, if you scroll down, then with the help of Wi-Fi client class object, we are simply getting connected, or we are calling a link. And that link is your path, that's temperature value, TMP, that is your false key value pair. False key is going to be TMP and the value of temperature, which we are getting from LM35. Second key value pair is going to be your lat and latitude value, which is randomly generated. Third is going to be, longitude value, which is again generated randomly, and we're going to send this. So we'll have to change the code. Okay, I'm going to close a few things here. Okay, let me change few things in the code. So basically, we're not going to change anything. I'm just going to uncomment this. Okay, there's something that I forgot to do, which I should have done, but somehow I missed it. That's why you're able to see the messages right now. Okay, so we are going to. Okay, so what we are doing here, guys, we are grabbing the data. The Node MCU is going to call that HTTP link, and that link is going to reach or is going to activate this Python code. And once this Python code is executed or activated, right, what we are going to do, we are going to pass that link, and we are going to get the key value pair. Key is TMP, lat, and long, LNG, and we are going to get those values, and we are going to store those values inside our file. Which file we are going to store it? iot.txt. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Don't store it. So this is a very simple code, right? One of the simplest code that I could have think of or could have thought of. creating this. Now, let's run our this code. So in the previous episode, we connected our Node MCU. We were able to blink the LED on Node MCU. Now we're going to move forward and we're going to run this code. Okay, it might take some time, right? Okay, because Arduino is compatible with Arduino devices or Arduino boards, and we are making Arduino work with Node MCU. So this cross connection is something that takes time. Any queries you have, you can ask me meanwhile.
Yeah, I'll look at the chat. I don't see anything in the chat right now, but what's typically the time it takes for it to process?
Good question.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's a question from Drunk Owl. Node MCU has the temperature sensor?
Nope.
No.
Let me show you the temperature sensor. I think I have some somewhere. I don't want to take it out from my connection.
Right. Good question, though. That was a good question.
Okay, let me show you how Node MCU looks like actually.
I'm going to switch over from code view to our bigger view so that they can see what you're going to be showing. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, so it's a small little tiny device.
Okay, now can you see it? I have kept my
yeah, we could see it. It looks like almost
legs.
3 needles or something into a and someone's saying TP199.
Exactly. So
that's Shruti who said that.
Yeah, so the thing inside is, or the thingy, or the electronic component inside this is TP.
Okay.
And that is what makes it work, sense the temperature.
Cool.
Okay, so you get it from different companies, right? And the component is same, TP. I don't know the full name, but thank you, Shruti, of the component actually. Okay, so I'm going to run this, upload it again, right? And I'm going to start the serial monitor so that we can see what is happening here. And apart from while it is happening, let me show you something on my presentation. So this is the connection that I have made. This is LM35, right? So you have very basic, very simple connection. And this sensor is an analog sensor. That means that its value varies with time, right? It could be anything. Okay, so we are going to connect these pin number 2, which is the middle pin, to A0, which is basically your analog pin of this Node MCU, right? This top left pin on Node MCU. Okay, let's get back to the code. Okay, so it has completed the code, and you can see that the IP address assigned to Node MCU is this, and this is the data which we are generating. Now, the thing is it showing on the server, right? That is what we have to see.
And each one of the first one was the temp, and the other 2 were the lat long?
Yeah, that is right? What we were printing.
Okay.
So if you see the code, this is lat long.
Gotcha.
And we are randomly generating it.
Right. But the temperature, is that also randomly generated, or is that actually coming from the temperature sensor?
Temperature is coming from temperature sensor. So it's kind of hot here, especially with the light that we have. It's 33.94 degrees Celsius.
Celsius. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's not Fahrenheit.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let's see if we are getting the data. So we are getting a bunch of data here, right? You can see the stream. And if you look at the stream, this is something that I was talking about, right? For same data, we are printing so much of data, right? For just 3 values. And that is something which is not good with HTTP. Let's check if we are able to store this data. iot.txt. Oh, I should not have opened like this, but no worries. Let me open this in a text editor. That will be better.
Okay.
So this is a data that we have got.
Gotcha. So you're saying what we're looking at now is not device stored, but server stored, or at least gateway stored.
Yeah. So the point is, the thing that I'm showing you here, or what we are looking at, is that you have an IoT endpoint, right? This IoT endpoint is sending data to an IoT gateway. Now you can have multiple of such IoT devices. This is
Mm-hmm.
only one. You can have
Mm-hmm.
hundreds and thousands. All you have to do is you have to do a load testing. You'll have to see
Mm-hmm.
how much of data, how much of connection your Raspberry Pi can handle, and how much your code is optimized to handle this.
So
Once you do that,
Vidhan, I gotta say, Shruti, I think now I know what you're gonna do, but Shruti made this comment, and I think it's a challenge. But she's
okay.
like, by the way, you can use a hair dryer to change that temperature. We did that for our practicals at UNI. Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Hold on, let me
I
make
got
this. Let
something.
me put this on the big screen. Hold on, just a second. All right. So what are you holding up here?
So it's a simple lighter. I had it with me.
Let's see if it works. Go ahead and light it.
Yeah, it's going to work.
Can
So
you
the
light it in front of the camera, or are you
yeah,
afraid to light it in front of the
I'll
camera?
try not to burn the camera. Okay,
No, I
I'll
mean, can
have to
you light
do.
it right now in front of our camera so we can see it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we
that is
got
what
the
I'm going to
large
try.
view.
Can you see it here?
Oh yeah, you don't have to light it to the device yet. I was just saying, can we just
I'll,
see it's functional? But if you're gonna do that, go ahead.
so I'll have to do it only. So
Okay.
I'm going to increase the temperature. You can check the reading. Can you see the flame?
Well, we see the flame. We're not even looking at the code right now. We're just looking at you with the flame. Should I switch over now to the code view?
Oh, you can do that. You can do that.
Okay, so we're switching over to code view now.
I hope I
And
didn't burn anything.
are the numbers? Let's see.
Um,
Where are they at right now?
so it increased by a degree centigrade or Celsius.
Oh, I see. Yeah, 34.85.
Uh,
I see.
so the it went
Oh,
up 35.
35.15. Yeah, it's starting to go up. It's getting
So
heated.
yeah, so these are not that accurate, but works well for simple tasks. Otherwise, you can go for a more sensitive and sophisticated temperature sensors. Okay, so this is you can say that a complete scenario where you are sending data, and you can change the data where you are storing it. I can simply change a few lines of code here, and I can simply store it in a CSV, right? All you have to do is, instead of .txt, you'll have to change it to CSV, or you might have to import few things here so that you can store it properly. Let me store it in CSV. For the next data cycle, it's going to get stored in CSV. Okay, let me open this. So you can see here, the data is getting stored like this. Okay. Now, the next task is a very simple one, right? Uh, the point is that you have your data stored, you are getting your data. So I'm going to close this file and open it again. Okay, just to show you that the data values are changing. Now
Gotcha.
you can just see it is filling the complete uh, lines here, right? The columns.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing that we are supposed to do, right, is we can set a condition here, right? Uh, in our code, what we can do is we can set a condition. We can have a simple if else, right? Either you can have a simple if else, where you can define what condition you want to have. Let's say that the scenario is that you have an IoT device and it is sending temperature data, and you want to do something when temperature exceeds certain value or drops below certain value,
Sure.
right? Okay, so what you can have is you can have, if let's say that will m.
And while you're writing that if statement, I was just thinking, I wonder if I had that device here with me, if I just simply started talking to it, if that would raise the temperature. I don't know if I'm a lot of hot air, but it would be interesting to find out. Or cooling down. I mean, you and Shruti have at least an easy way to heat up, but you have any ice packs available, or?
I'll have to go downstairs and grab the
Oh
ISPAC
no, you don't
complete
have to do that.
refrigerator.
I was just curious how you would actually test, to get a little cooler. But
We
continue,
can do
right?
that. We can do that in the next episode, right? I can get we can have the fire and ice effect. I can
Glad I
get the
could
fire.
scope creep the next episode.
Yeah.
That's great. Very good.
So okay, let me talk about the scenario that we are planning to build. I think I won't start it today, right? Because it's going to be a big one. Because we are going to integrate the map in this scenario. But what we are planning to do, let me show it on this. So basically, I'm going to go back. What we are planning to do is we have an IoT device
Mm-hmm.
sending location temperature data to IoT gateway. Now, imagine that you have made it public. When I say public, or you have hosted it on a proper static IP, right? Now, instead of my IoT device sending to a local server, which we are doing right now, it will send to a public server or a static IP address. And that static IP address will be of a Raspberry Pi. You have hosted that Raspberry Pi, or you have made that Raspberry Pi's IP address static. Now, you want to have a scenario where you won't want to do something when data reaches certain condition, right? Okay, and let's say that the temperature data, you're sending all these values, and you want to perform certain tasks. Let's say that this device IoT endpoint is in an ambulance. It is monitoring the stats of a patient, right? And the stats could be your temperature, your oxygen level, your humidity, your heart rate, all these things. And then on the gateway, either you can have it on IoT device or on the gateway. But IoT device is not that powerful right now. So what we're going to do is we are going to have it on gateway, where we are performing if and else kind of a task, one that you can do. Or if you have more complex data and you want to do certain kind of predictive analytics or machine learning, you can also run a very simple machine learning model on Raspberry Pi. But that will be too much, right? Okay, for now. So you can have an if and else condition where if your temperature reaches certain value, we can have uh, we can open a map, or we can find out a route to the nearest hospital, and we can calculate that on our IoT gateway, and we can send back the response to IoT endpoint, so that the driver of the ambulance can reach to the nearest hospital, or can go to the nearest medical shop, or can go to the nearest emergency center, right? So what we are going to do is we're going to integrate or run the map on a certain condition of a temperature on our IoT gateway. That is what we're going to do.
Cool.
Okay, let me see if I can do something else here. Okay, let me try building a few of the parts here, right? So that you all can work with. So if we have, say, well temp, which is going to be, we're going to convert it into float, because we are treating it as an string. We'll have to check from the code if it is a string or it's a float value. Okay, we are converting it into a string, and we are passing it on. Okay, so we'll have to convert it back into float. If this value is, say, greater than, what could be a body temperature which could be bad in degrees Celsius?
Oh boy, I don't know.
Okay,
I
same here.
don't know for Celsius. I know Fahrenheit, but I don't know. Shruti's
Let's
saying
see.
40.
Okay, let's say 40. Thank you, Shruti.
I trust
And
her.
same here. And we can have float, well, temp, and this value could be less than how much? I think 25 degrees Celsius. Will it be too cold? I think 17 for the body.
I'll see if Shruti has any opinions, but we'll go with 17 for now. She says 20, or no, I'm getting multiples. Drunk Al says 20. Kubra speaking says 35. What will
Okay.
Vinhan do?
I kept it quite low, because when you talk about ambulance, already
Oh,
the temperature is
sure.
quite low there. So
Yeah,
body might,
fell into an icy lake, that kind of a thing. Yeah.
yeah. So you can simply So what we want to do is we want to, if this condition arises, we want to open an HTML page for us on Raspberry Pi, where we are able to monitor the location of the vehicle, right? And apart from that, you would want to route, or you want to see the routing instruction taking us to the nearest hospital. So, do you know a way through which we can do this? Any idea?
Oh, I have some ideas. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Feel
mean,
free.
I'm assuming you mean that perhaps we would call an API passing in the information that we have.
Yes. So we are going to pass it the values, lat long values, to the HTML page, right?
Right.
To the JavaScript. And for that, we are going to use what we call Flask, which is a micro web framework. So we'll have to install Flask. I didn't install it. Let's install it right now. So, you have many options here. You can go for, okay, we already have Flask here. So let me check if Flask is working fine or not. Import Flask from Flask. Okay, maybe it's the other way around. Just a sec. Okay, so Flask is working. So basically what we are going to do is here we are going to simply call a Flask application, which is going to pass on the latitude longitude value, right? So here we are going to create let's have lat, and we can have lat as well, lat, and this is also working as a string, so you would have to convert it into float. These two things you'll have to do. Okay. Now, what we are doing is basically if this condition is matched, right? If the temperature is greater than 40 degrees Celsius and lower than 70 degrees Celsius, what you're going to do? We are simply going to create or assign a value of lat long to the variable, the latest one, right? And then we are going to simply start the Flask app. In that case, we'll have to import Flask. Sorry, from Flask, import Flask and render template. Okay, I hope I'm getting the name correct, render underscore template. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to run a Flask application, and this Flask application is going to render a HTML page. And this HTML page, which we are going to render, is being done with the help of what we call render template module or submodule of Flask module. Now, when we talk about Flask, now there's one big catch here, right? Because we are already running a server, HTTP server, and for Flask, we are supposed to run another server, right? And we have a live stream of data coming in, right? So if the scenario is that you have a live stream of data coming in, and you want to send this live stream of data from one of your Python code to your Flask application, you cannot directly send it, right? Either you'll have to use Ajax, which I'm not good at, or you can use WebSocket, which I can work with. Again, I'm not that good with it. So here we are not going to treat or look at that scenario. What we're going to do is instead of sending all the data and changing the position, we're only going to send the data when the conditions are matched. And the condition is your if condition. So we are going to grab this and we're going to simply work with the Flask application. Okay, so I'm going to hold it here, right? Because that is something that I'm going to show with a proper time duration that we have. Okay, now a few other things that you can do here, right? One, instead of HTTP server, you can go for MQTT server or MQTT broker. But again, running an MQTT broker on your Raspberry Pi is easy, but managing it could become a bit difficult, right? So if you want to run an MQTT server for testing, you can simply go for Mosquito, right? It got a weird name and a good name, right? So if you talk about Python, you have Anaconda, which is the IDE, you have Mosquito. All the animals are here. So you can go with Mosquito and you can simply install it in the net. If we have time in the next episode, so we are going to try it out for sure.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
So, do you think that that's as far as we're going to get, as far as content is concerned for this episode?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let me transition to our little closing page. So, hey, I appreciate. It's always kind of fun to see how people are or presenters deal with things as they happen. I thought that you handled all the different variances really well. I like to see the code in action, and thank you for all your explanations. So maybe just briefly give us a sneak peek. What are we doing in the next episode?
So one thing which we have not done till now is we have not introduced AWS and we have not introduced here. So that is what we're going to do in the next episode. We are going to move to the cloud basically. So we have done IoT device. We have created that. We have done IoT gateway today. That is, we have created a server. We have connected IoT device to a server. In the next episode, we are going to work on cloud. And while working on a cloud, we are going to send data from our Node MCU or Arduino to the AWS server directly. One. Second, we are going to send data from our gateway to AWS server. And third, before both of these tasks, we are going to simply complete this code and we are going to show how to run a here map on your IoT gateway and how to do all kind of stuff with that, right? Rendering and finding out the locations and finding out the route. Yeah, so these are the things that we're going to do.
Awesome. Well, tell you what, you got a thumbs up from Rawthorn. Great episode. And there's also going to, and Shruti wants to know, will there be different curtains for the next episode?
I'll ask my mom.
But here's an important question that was asked by Drunk Owl. Drunk Owl says, do you have a schedule? So I'm so glad you asked that question, Drunk Owl, because we have some important information to discuss about when next episodes are. So first of all, I just put a link into the chat. That link is to what is happening next week. Typically, what we would tell you is that we have my series, which is on supply chain, next week, but that's not going to happen. So let me make it crystal clear. Instead of telling you what's not going to happen, let me tell you what is going to happen. Next week, we invite everyone to our virtual directions event.
Yeah.
So the link is there. It'll be next week. So we're not going to have an AWS Connections episode next week like we normally would. But 2 weeks from today will be the episode for supply chain. 3 weeks from today will be the next episode for the IoT. So, and then from that point forward, it's alternating Wednesdays. It alternates. But just to be clear, next week is our virtual directions event as a company. Following week is supply chain. The week after that is going to be the next episode for IoT. So I just want to make sure everyone was aware of that. And do you have any closing comments, Vidhan, before we do something a little interesting from our producer who is lurking behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about next week, Virtual Directions. I'm looking forward to it. And apart from that, it's always a pleasure to be talking about IoT and here and AWS. So yeah, looking forward to our future events, especially Virtual Directions.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be fun. We'll see some familiar faces there. I think Shruti has a speaking engagement there, so that's exciting. Richard does as well. So, all right, let's say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Stay safe.